Hello everyone, welcome to this LinkedIn live event with me, your host, Wesley Rashid. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Accountancy Cloud. And at Accountancy Cloud, we aim to be the #1 finance partner for startups. And that's why we are doing this content. This content is specifically designed for you, the startup entrepreneur. Now, we've been through a bit of a journey ourselves. We came up with this idea, we've ran with it. And I have to say a huge thanks to everyone that has provided feedback so far. It's been overwhelmingly positive. And so your support has just continued to spur us on. This is what we're passionate about. This is what we absolutely love doing. So we'll continue to keep on broadcasting content like this, but also check out our blogs and our guides that we're pushing out every week as well. Now, if you do have any content suggestions, or you want to appear on this show, if you're a founder that is facing a particular pain point that you want covered, look, hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm all ears, and I promise you I will read every single message. Now, some housekeeping things just to keep this house in order like we do every single month. First of all, look, if you are watching us on this live stream, we've got a little follow us button on the LinkedIn page. So please do follow us because we've got lots of exciting content in store for you. Equally, we'll be uploading this to YouTube. So if you're watching us on YouTube, please do hit that subscribe button. And just keep in know. We will keep you updated as we go along. Now, also, because this is a live stream event, you as an audience member, we want you engaged. We want you as interactive as possible. So hit us up with an emoji. If you do have a comment or a question, I'll make sure that we present them back to our fantastic guests. Great stuff. So look, let's go on to the subjects of what we're going to cover today. And that topic is on the very subject of how to fix a broken payment process. Now, I have to be honest with you. I was in the gym this morning and I did a quick Google search. And to be honest, apart from a few blogs here and there wasn't, I just don't think this subject is really talked about enough. And I think, if you're a founder and you're watching this, I think you can relate to me on this. Like when it comes to the month end, you've got some level of anxiety, just hoping that your payment process runs smooth when it comes to paying your employees, right? Everyone's kind of felt it. Well, I certainly have. And I think that really stems from the fact that as a CEO or a founder, whether you've delegated this process to someone else or not, or you're doing it yourself, the buck stops with you. Like the responsibility for making those payments run smoothly and the capacity for someone to pay their bills, to actually live, a decent wage, right? It falls on you, whether you have a small company, a small startup, or, you are a high growth company with hundreds of employees, right? And this extends even further to things like supplier payments. Everyone knows that feeling where that last minute legal bill comes through and the due date is just beckoning. It's not a nice feeling. And equally, even when it comes to things like expense reimbursements, which happens constantly, right? So we're going to cover this topic, and we're going to try and demystify and help you try to fix what we think is a fragmented process. So, what are the best practices? How can you improve your payments culture? We've brought along two fantastic guests with us today. So do give them a warm welcome. We have Liz Sheldon, the UKI partner lead from Pleo, and we have Andrew, the CEO from Telleroo. Thank you for coming on the show, guys. Really, really appreciate it.
No, thanks so much for having us. Really exciting.
Wonderful stuff. Really appreciate it. So look, what we're going to do, guys, is we've got about 30 minutes of questions. So it's Q&A. It's going to be super intense for you. right? But let's start off with some easy questions to start off with. Look, just for the audience's sake, are you able to just give us a quick overview of your role at your respective companies and what your company actually does?
Yeah. I can kick things off. Hi everyone, really great to be here and excited to have you all dial in. So I said my name's Liz Sheldon. I look after the UK partnerships channel for Pleo. For those of you who don't know, Pleo is a company spend solution. So be it employee expenses, be it mileage, be it supplier invoices or subscriptions, we basically enable and empower business owners and then finance professionals as well to control, budget, manage their spend and all aspects of that.
All right, I'll take over now. I'm Andrew Cookson. I'm CEO at Telleroo. And what we're trying to do is eliminate all of the manually keying in of payees and payments of businesses. This is, you log into your online banking in the evening, you're making those payments late at night. These are the things you don't need to be doing anymore. And they're not something that people should be handling. They should be automated. And we're trying to automate all of that for you directly from your accounting software.
Wonderful, guys. Look, really, really thankful that you've come onto the show. And just for the audience's sake, I literally chucked out a couple of emails and they were like right on it. So they are absolutely fantastic to come on here. And very brave as well, because we've got some great questions coming up. Let's start off with the first one then, Liz. Let's start with you. What is the payment process and what does it consist of?
Yeah, so when it comes to expenses anyway, the payment relationship that we talk about is largely between the employee and the employer. So it's, the purchasing of items that employees need to do in order to carry out their role. And, that's then signed off. And then hopefully eventually it's approved and then reimbursed back to the employee bank account. So within that process, there's, a lot of moving parts within that. There's a lot of bureaucracy. There can be a lot of lag time in between each step, which can be a huge invisible cost to a business. There's research to show that the average manual expense report actually costs £23 to submit, which might not sound like much at first, but when you start to then multiply that out, across the team, across the month, across the year, that's potentially tens of thousands of pounds cost to your company's bottom line. And what we talk about there is just the act of reimbursing an employee. That's not actually paying for the item itself. So what we're tasked with as a provider is, how do we make that payment process as smooth as possible? How do we satisfy all parties involved in that journey, from the end user at the till through to the manager that might be overseeing, through to the accountant that closes the books at the end of the month. There's lots of moving parts, there's lots of different stakeholders, but it's a process that can be made slicker, and it can even be made enjoyable. It can be gamified, and with technology, we definitely think we can achieve that.
Wonderful stuff. Anything there to add, Andrew?
Yeah, I guess from the bank transfer side of things and the banking, it's all about your business size. And if you're a small business right now, your payment process is how you move your funds from one place, your bank account, to somewhere else. If you're a small business, it's going to be ad hoc. So you're going to be sending payments as and when you need to. It's a little bit risky, but maybe you can take on that risk because you, as a business owner, might know what needs to go out and when it does. As you kind of get bigger, though, that payment process can change completely. So that might be task delegations, the fraud checks, checking for duplicates, and also the approvals, which is really important as well. So it all depends on your payment, on your business size, but the process changes. It's all about getting that money from your bank to somebody else.
Cool. Look, I appreciate, having great software in place is really key to trying to automate these processes and to minimize the risk of errors, right? But on that very subject, what are the biggest red flags that warn companies about problems in their own payment processes? Anything you could add there, Andrew?
It kind of comes back to the same thing. So as you grow, if you're not able to delegate those payments or that process, you as a business owner are just going to be overloaded with this. And then that leads into you spending those evenings in online banking, keys in late at night, those payee account number and sort code, you're getting that completely wrong, which then leads to the other thing, which is the reconciliation nightmares. You get to the end of the month and you realize, oh, you sent 2 payments or something doesn't add up. These are all the warning signs that, look, you need to fix that process and you need to automate it as much as possible.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I think we've all been there, right? And it's like you made a batch of payments to suppliers, and your suppliers are then chasing you up, going, "Hey, what's going on?" And you realise that you've missed one, right? And so that's a really, really good point there. Liz, anything to add there from Pleo?
Yeah, completely. I think, besides the expected ones that obviously Andrew flagged, like, the lack of visibility, chasing back and forth, there's confusion over who signed what off. And of course, those are, hugely inefficient and really important. But another area that I think isn't spoken about so widely is how, the manual reimbursement process can really hurt the employee experience. So more unexpected red flags, but they could be things like, disengaged team members, lack of motivation, getting more kind of quiet and subdued. It can even lead to you losing top talent. We recently did a YouGov survey with 3,000 business professionals and found that 14% have admitted that they've even left a job due to poor expense processes, which it sounds crazy, but it's this concept that, of course, fronting cash, it places such a huge financial burden on employees. And sometimes, of course, you're talking about, graduates straight out of uni. It might be a working parent. But point being, employees don't have the funds necessarily to be able to cover, what could be multiple business purchases every month. They should look to their jobs as sources of income, not as drains on personal resources. And it's so important for business leaders to think through how their processes might impact people in different positions across the company. And, the survey also revealed that it's 2/3 of business professionals that do experience that financial loss or stress. And I think ultimately that's the complete opposite of what you want when you're building a business. You hired the movers and shakers, those that are pioneers, but what you're potentially doing is directly reducing their own personal line of credit. And so, what we talk about is, and I think it's becoming increasingly obvious to us as a provider, is that, spending tools can really give power to your people. It shouldn't be about, managers judging employees on purchases, but it's more about finding ways that you can engage and empower employees so that you can build more productive teams. And these are red flags that, as said, they're less expected, but they can be equally as dangerous.
That Liz, just to add, that stat is crazy. I didn't realize that was the case, but I do think that it shows that this is a really quick win for a lot of companies as well. These payment processes, if you just fix them, they're fairly easy to fix, but it's such a big win. But nobody really talks about it, and no one's aware about it. I wasn't aware of that stat you just said. It's crazy.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because like payment processes are like, are structured like in nature. So you put some software into it, then you should be able to automate that, and then that comes. That delivers the time and the capacity, like in the business. And your point earlier when you were talking about like segregation of duties, and you don't want the founder making like bulk payments to like God knows how many suppliers and employees. It's not really practical, right? But you know what, Liz, you also made a really good point there around like how important it is. So on that point, I'm just going to drill down further on what you said there. Like, have you seen any like shift in behaviour in like particularly business owners, CEOs, founders, right? Particularly in the pandemic, where they've recognised that this is a big issue, and their attitudes are just starting to change.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, our results speak for themselves. So last year, Pleo saw growth of like plus 150%, which is insane. But understatement. But of course, the pandemic changed everything, and it was very much overnight. So suddenly business leaders are grappling with decentralized workforces, teams split up all over the country. So the spatial structures of the workplace changed, but the operational running of the business, managing your finances was still the same. So there was a huge mismatch there, and it definitely caught a lot of companies out. Another stat from our YouGov results was that, only 18% of businesses actually had digital payment processes in place, which I thought was a lot lower than perhaps I was expecting. But, really simple tasks that we previously took for granted, like, sharing credit cards, popping out to the shops, walking over to someone's desk for permission, it's just simply weren't possible. And businesses had to catch up to that reality and, of course, quickly find a solution that would enable employees to remain productive, all while giving them that real-time tracking, that visibility, that control. And I think we're still, seeing those long-lasting effects from the pandemic, even with it somewhat subsiding, but the setup of the workplace now is so different. We see businesses still maintaining that remote friendly culture, or, starting to actually now hire further afield than just London. So there continues this growing need for businesses to set up employees to work remote from home. And not only that, but, still having that sense of, needing to scrimp and save and know where to cut back and budget. So having that complete view of your ingoings and outgoings was vital. And I think, we've been a big enabler of that in that today.
Yeah, totally agree. I just come up with an idea, just as you were talking about hybrid working cultures, that I might put an event around that subject. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Just going to go to comments now. Thank you, Eamon. Wes for president. I will take that, mate. That's why I was laughing a little bit earlier, just before the intro. Thank you. Sean Griggs is processing their payroll and commissions as they watch this stream. Oh. Very, very cool. And he also said that he's just started using Pleo. So let us know how you get on there, Sean. I'm sure will be positive feedback.
That's nice.
All right, good stuff. So let's go on to the next one, right? Okay, you talked about digital payment processes, and so what are the benefits of a digital payment process? And yeah, if you can dive into that first, then maybe have you had, also I'll ask the question, have you had any pushbacks from anyone that's adopting a digital payment process too? So let's start off with the benefits, guys. Andrew, let's kick off with you.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious at the moment. The main issues that come with it are the payments are connected to people's manual inputs right now. As we're saying, keying them in and everything like that, when really they need to be connected to the accounting outputs. So everything your accounting system's doing, it should be connected to that. And the benefit is that then you can automate all of those manual repetitive tasks, as I said earlier. Because like as a business owner, FD, or anyone in a business, it's so hard to spot the small details that we're really bad at as humans. You can't spot when an account number is different, or when a sort code's changed slightly, or even when an amount varies from month to month, because we're just not programmed like that. We're good at just finding patterns, but we're not good at spotting those details. So the benefit really is all about automating those tasks that we're just not good at.
Yeah. You know what I was thinking about, like, I wish we could post a poll on here just to get a survey out to understand how many business owners are using one of those little keypads, like you use for HSBC or Barclays.net, because I'm pretty sure that when, as you were saying that, they were like, yeah, I could do with a more digital process for sure.
And that's expected. That's the crazy thing, right? As a business owner, like we talk to companies small and big, and as they grow, they kind of feel that their payment, the amount of time they're spending on these processes should grow as well. But that's not the case. Like, it can still be very, very short, but it's just a belief, especially like 10 years ago, you're like, oh, I'm an FD, as my company grows, I've got to spend even more time on those manual processes. It's just not the case anymore. It's amazing. And that's what I love about tech, like Pleo, Telleroo. I love it. I think it's brilliant.
Brilliant stuff. Fantastic. I think it's a really great point. And like I say, at the top of this event, I don't think the subject is talked about enough, and yet it's so essential for so many businesses, right? We don't want to make payments a distraction for anyone. Okay, yeah. So let's go on to what can startups do to establish better payment processes? Liz, let's go with you this time.
Yeah. So you see a lot of scrappiness in startups. It's definitely not a bad thing. I mean, Pleo has definitely seen its fair share of bootstrapping in our 6 years as well. We were very much once a startup ourselves. But what we would say is that, the work that you put in now, the processes, establish the good habits, create that kind of toolkit, that can, of course, scale with you as you grow. And, it's only going to mean success for you later. It's a lot harder to backtrack than it is to future-proof your business. So a really easy first step would be just simply to have an expense policy in place. It can be really easily overlooked, and it might seem OTT, certainly if there's only a few of you around. But we talk about, an expense policy being like a living, breathing organism. It's something that should really swell and grow with your business as you scale. You'll find that employees don't necessarily want to step out of line and overspend. It's more often than not that businesses haven't outlined what the spend guidelines are. So make sure that you establish that from day one. It shouldn't just be something that's black and white, to account for every single context. But it's more about providing as well, like the flexible parameters that can empower employees to make their own trusted decisions in real time with good judgment for the business. And then a second, really a kind of obvious one, I guess. I mean, we're all dialing in here today. It's, invest in finance automation tools. As Andrew mentioned, eliminating the menial and the kind of tedious data entry can only open up room for the more important stuff, the strategic things, focusing on your funding round, the boardroom meeting. And yeah, there's no better way to establish better process than leaning on these tools that can give you that visibility, give you that space, and help make cash flow a lot easier and to set that control. So yeah, that's a couple of pointers initially, at least.
I think, and it's when I was a graduate, I worked at quite a large company, and they didn't have an expense policy, or at least I wasn't aware of it. And I generally always felt anxious. Like I never really expensed anything. Maybe it was good for them, right? Because I never expensed anything, so they were doing great. But I always felt anxious submitting anything, and I felt a bit guilty at the same time. Yet then when I moved on, having that expense policy and knowing that I can actually just expense something quickly, and I know that the boundaries of it, it just makes you feel so much more comfortable knowing that, and it makes you feel like they actually care about you. They actually want you to expense something, right?
It's a really, really good point. I think before you dive in, make sure you've got one source of truth that everyone adheres to, and it makes everyone, be on the same page, and that's really, really good advice. So yeah, great stuff there. Okay, yeah. So look, let's talk about what are the drawbacks of just using your bank services for payment processes. The questions just come in there.
Yeah, shall I take it? Yeah. So, I mean, I guess the first thing is the lack of user roles. Now, I mean, Wes, I don't know how many of your companies have to put in a bank mandate to get another user added to their bank, but it takes 2 months sometimes to actually get a user added to your bank account. And even when you get them added to it, you can't have any roles with a lot of them. So on the basic banking, you just add someone with full permission. So they have access to everything. So it's a really high risk move, hence why most business owners will just have themselves on there and they won't add anybody else.
Then just to touch on that,
yeah.
Even if you're added on as a secondary user, not just a primary user, right? When you've got read-only access, it's a bit of a nightmare, isn't it? I mean, filling out that paperwork and just waiting patiently. Yeah.
And yet, that's the thing, it's all done, you got to post it. It's just even that alone, I'm like, that's just crazy. But yeah, it's another world. And I guess that's the thing. Also adding those users, they can see everything in your bank account, which maybe you don't really think about. But if you may have, let's say at the end of the month, you're getting low on your funds because you're expecting more money in at the end of the month, that may panic that person that you're adding because they don't understand what's going on in the business. They may also be able to see the payroll that you're doing. So adding those people, it's quite, I guess, not dangerous, but you really need to think it through. And I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on that, but I guess the complex setup, if you do have a file upload with your bank, I've seen some of these, the instruction manuals for it, but it's completely insane. It's not easy to set up, and a lot of finance directors and business owners are scared to change any settings in case they mess up, and that puts their whole balance at risk. So they just avoid even using any new features in their bank because of that.
Yeah, great stuff. Yeah, real life examples, eh? For founders, you know. So yeah, great stuff. Really appreciate that answer. Very comprehensive as well. Let's put you on the spot then, guys. How much time should I, as a founder, be spending on managing payments each month? $1 million question. Deserves $1 million answer. So off you go. Let's start with Andrew again.
Okay, so I guess managing is completely up to the business. Like actually spending, looking at stuff and checking stuff over and making sure you've got everything correct. I'd say like it's all dependent on your business and your risk appetite, but actually creating the payments and the payees and spending time on, well, maybe Liz will talk about the expenses. I think it should be minutes rather than hours, and it's not something to be embarrassed about if you're spending 2 days making payments. That's just a normal thing that businesses are doing at the moment, but they're slowly changing the way that's happening now.
So just on one point on roles, because you mentioned it earlier on, like who do you mostly see like take ownership over the role of payments? Who you kind of, I guess it depends obviously on the size of the company, right? But just
yeah,
nice.
It's so funny enough. It's sometimes if it's a smaller company, because we even at Telleroo, let's say we have an office assistant. They may be actually setting up the payments, and then you might have your finance director come in and approve those payments. So there's no risk there having that. And so it means you can actually use your team and make use of all of their resources that they have, instead of someone who you might be paying £200 a day or £200 an hour keying in or spending time on the payments.
Yeah. I suppose, so larger the business is, the more sort of approval processes that they might want to follow, depending on how large the payment actually is.
Exactly. And it's scary. Like that's the larger the payment. I mean, we do large payments every now and then for our own business, and I'm scared still. I get that payment anxiety, and I'm thinking, oh my God, how do people do this? Like keying it in one by one and taking on that responsibility without knowing if this is 100% correct. It's crazy.
Yeah, great stuff. Okay, so let's go on to the next question, guys. How can a robust payments process be used to strengthen your startup culture? Liz, let's go for it.
Yeah, it's interesting. We talk a lot about culture at Pleo, which might sound a bit far-fetched. How can expense management enable a good culture in your business? But as I've mentioned before, the link between employee stress, financial hardship, and expenses are all really closely linked. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that business owners can make is to overlook the impact, that manual processes, out-of-pocket spend can have on employees and certainly on your culture. And in the early days of a startup, culture is not necessarily something that you would write down explicitly. It tends to develop organically over time. For Pleo, we hired people that we liked and we believed in. So without making it explicit, but your mission and your culture just kind of runs through your organization, through the people that you employ. So it's really interesting when you then start to identify how, tools can be used to validate the values that you want to uphold. We originally intended just to save money and time through automating, processes, but Pleo, the product, soon became quite symbolic of a certain culture that you had in a business. Employees having the freedom to make and expense company purchases whenever they want, and team leaders managing that process with spend limits and stuff. But that democratization of company money, making them feel equally responsible. There's a certain level of trust and transparency that's built, something that you just don't get with traditional credit cards. So those sorts of values are really key. They're critical at any size organization, but especially paramount for startups. And I think it's super important to use these tools to actually bring people along the journey of how you build your business and help rally them behind your vision. So it's interesting how you can start to see how potentially considered boring financial products can actually be turned into something fun, but also with a really positive influence on your business culture.
Yeah, wonderful stuff. Anything to add, Andrew?
I guess I'm always going to come from a bank transfer and the banking side of things. It might be a bit boring, I know, but it's one of these things where it's such a high risk job. Whoever is doing it, if it's the FD, the business owner, a finance assistant, it's so high risk, and there's not really much reward, because if you do payroll correctly or your supplier brand correctly, no, everyone's like, yeah, great, that's your job, you've done it. But nobody's like, wow, you just checked all those bank details, nothing went wrong, you had a load of new suppliers. It's not appreciated, really. And so that's why I think, especially with like this whole mental health thing, it needs to be important that people are valued, and those things that aren't appreciated, payments, should be automated as much as possible. So you can say goodbye to the payment anxiety that you feel when you send that big payment or that big pay run, and you go, did I send that to the right people? And that's always niggling in the back of your head, and it sits with you. You just want to get rid of that completely and free that employee or those employees of that completely.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, there is an emotional attachment to money, and when that moves, you want to make sure, that you're kind of on top of that. And look, now as we're doing, as we run these events, obviously, we're giving the chance to add to this conversation by bringing on guests who, are trusted partners as well. But at the same time, we hope this is educational content for you, so that you guys that are, watching this, consider all the available options that are available for you. So I just wanted to quickly drop that in as well before we get to last question. And it's been great so far having you guys. So look, this last one. Let's delve a little bit further into your product. So how exactly do Telleroo and Pleo help with payment processes? Let's start off with you, Liz.
Yeah. So we're an end-to-end solution. It means that, when it comes to company spend, all of the different stakeholders involved in that purchase decision, as said, it could be, a cup of coffee, or it could be a SaaS subscription, it could be, a crate of beers for the office and paying a supplier. But all of those stakeholders involved, so the end user through to the manager that wants to be budgeting, through to the business leader that might need to forecast, that it enables businesses to, of course, stay productive while remote, while still, enabling business leaders with that kind of control and the ability to track their spend.
Brilliant stuff.
Yeah, I guess, from Telleroo's point of view, we allow business owners, finance teams to just forget about manually keying in their payments and the amounts, and formalize those pay runs and the pay run process as well. And that's just syncing payments directly from your accounting software, and super simple reconciliation, because anything you do in Telleroo gets updated in your accounting software, which is the best bit, really. And I guess the best part, including Accounting Cloud, is that you can outsource this to your accounting firm. So if you're using Accounting Cloud, they can set up that bespoke pay run process all for you, and they're going to be the experts because they understand your business needs. So that's the beauty of Telleroo.
Nice little plug there, Andrew. Well
done.
I didn't pay. By the way, I didn't pay him. Right? He's just ad-libbing right now. Look, guys, I think we're pretty much on time. I think we've covered off most of the questions here. If anyone has any questions, after this event, please come to me. I make sure that either Andrew or Liz, or maybe both of them, get your questions. Guys, how can they contact you? Through us, probably. Probably. Liz, it's Pleo, I think, .io.
Yeah, really simple, liz@pleo.io. We have a unique partnership with the Accountancy Cloud. So actually, all of your clients get to benefit from exclusive discounts and things. So speak to Wes, or of course reach out to me directly.
And it's same thing over here. It's Andrew at Telleroo. I mean, my email address isn't the same as Liz's. It's different. It's andrew@telleroo.com. And again, the same thing.
Wonderful stuff. And yes, please, if you have any questions, we want to learn a little bit more about Telleroo or Pleo, please do contact me. It's wesley@theaccountancycloud.com. And thank you for joining us on this Friday. Thank you, our guests, Liz and Andrew, and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Bye.